All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about a military command structure that was literally born from the ashes of a catastrophic failure, and how after 50 years, its entire story just got a massive plot twist. This is the story of Pakistan's Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee. So let me ask you a question. What happens when you have a powerful army, a modern navy, and a top-notch air force, but during a war, they're not really talking to each other? What happens when your three biggest players aren't on the same team? Well, we don't have to imagine. For Pakistan, back in 1971, the answer was absolutely brutal. A catastrophic defeat that ended with the country losing half of its territory. This one event, this single failure, forced a total reinvention of its military command from the ground up. To really get why this new command structure was created, you have to understand just how bad the problem was. And the problem in 1971 was, simply put, a war fought almost completely blind. And listen, this isn't just us looking back with 2020 hindsight. Studies from that time were incredibly blunt. They said the war was fought, and I'm quoting here, without a purpose and with total lack of coordination. This wasn't just a few mistakes on the battlefield. It was a complete and total system failure right from the very top. So, why? How did this happen? Well, let's break it down. First, there was simply no joint staff, no central hub to get everyone on the same page. That meant the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force were all drawing up their own secret plans in their own little bubbles. As the war got going, trying to coordinate anything became pretty much impossible. And the result? Well, you can guess. A massive blame game where every service pointed the finger at everyone else. After a defeat that huge, the country needed answers. Badly. So they launched a national post-mortem, a formal investigation to figure out what on earth went so wrong. This investigation became known as the Hamudur Rahman Commission. It was led by the Chief Justice himself, and its job was to perform an autopsy on the entire civil-military machine to understand the root cause of the failure. And the Commission's main finding was crystal clear. In their report, they made a powerful recommendation. Pakistan absolutely had to create a permanent, unified command structure to make sure a disaster like this could never, ever happen again. So, with that diagnosis in hand, the country got to work. The mission was to build a brand new institution from scratch, one that would force the different branches of the military to plan together, train together, and fight together. The solution was basically a two-step plan. First, you create the Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, the JCSC, to be the central brain. And second, you give that brain a body, the Joint Staff Headquarters in Rawalpindi, to actually get things done. The big idea here was actually pretty simple, but it was powerful. The JCSC would bring the heads of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force to the same table, all of them led by a chairman. It was a structure designed to guarantee that no single service could ever go off and plan a war all by itself again. And this wasn't just an idea on paper. It became a reality in March of 1976. The Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee was officially born, and Army General Muhammad Sharif became its very first chairman. This was a whole new era for Pakistan's military. Okay, so the committee exists, but what does the chairman of the Joint Chiefs actually do? This is a really important point to get, because it's not what you might think. Yeah, so the chairman isn't some supreme commander who controls all the troops. They don't have direct operational command. The best way to think about it is like a quarterback. The chairman is the principal military advisor to the government they call the strategic plays. But it's the individual service chiefs who actually execute those plays with their forces. So if you look at the committee's main jobs, you can see every single one is a direct answer to the failures of 1971. We're talking joint planning, joint training, integrated logistics, all the stuff that was missing. The JCSC is there to provide that big picture strategic direction and to be the bridge between the military and the civilian leadership. And the engine room for all of this is the Joint Staff Headquarters. This place is a massive nerve center with different departments for everything you can think of. Joint training, ops, logistics. Each one was designed specifically to stop the kind of isolated planning that caused so much trouble back in '71. To give you a taste of what the job is like, just look at this little snapshot from 2019. In just a couple of months, you've got the chairman meeting with the head of U.S. Central Command, the Chinese ambassador, and flying out for a state visit to Morocco. It really shows you that this role is just as much about high-level diplomacy as it is about pure military strategy. So, for almost 50 years, this was the system. Born from defeat, designed for unity. It seemed like a permanent part of the structure. But then, in a pretty stunning move, the very thing we just spent all this time explaining has been completely upended. Get this, a recent constitutional amendment says, and I'm quoting here, "The office of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee has been abolished." Just like that, the position created to solve the biggest problem of the past is gone. So what's in its place? Well, the responsibilities didn't just disappear. They've been rolled into a new and arguably more powerful position, the Chief of Defense Forces. And this new role is held by the same person who is the Chief of the Army Staff. That's a huge consolidation of military power. Which brings us to the big question. For half a century, the JSCC was the solution to the chaos of 1971, designed specifically to create balance and coordination. So what does it mean for the future of Pakistan's unified command now that it's been abolished? Why this change was made right now? Well, that's still being debated. And what comes next is something only time is going to tell. Thanks for watching.